As you walk through God's acre, you pause, read the headstone, and wonder, what's the story behind that? Well, we're with the guy who knows the stories behind many of the people who've come to rest here. Tell us about this one.
Well, Gordon Marwick was born in Canada, grew up in Canada, and he served with the CEF, which is the Canadian Expeditionary Force in the First World War. After the war, he came back and he went to live in the States, in Washington State. And he died in 1997. He didn't have much money, and he was living with some family friends. And he was cremated, and his remains were put in a box with some of his medals and a few other mementos. Well, the building was sold, and the people who bought it many years later found this box.
Wow.
And they determined that they saw a letter that he'd wanted to be buried in Canada. And so they arranged for have his remains sent back up here, and it was only 2 years ago that a little ceremony was put together, and his remains were placed here, and he was buried. So he was the last veteran not to die, but to be buried here from the First World War.
What an incredible story. Incredible.
It is.
And when you hear those stories, it reminds us why it is so important that we do remember. Now, of course, one way for us to preserve the history of especially World War I and World War II is through reading the letters that were written to people who were overseas. But how do you preserve them so that history remains with us forever? Well, we are heading up to Nanaimo to tell you a story that will help you understand the art of preserving letters.